Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Talon. I'm a storyteller helping people make an impact through illustration, creative coaching, writing, and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness. And now I bring my 20 years experience to you, the listener, through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. Through interviews with thought leaders in and beyond the creative industry and personal inquiry, I'm here to help you maximise the human in your creativity to thrive in the age of automation. The show has been supported from day one by Illustration X, a leading illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. Foilco, suppliers of the world's widest range of stamping foil shades and finishes to the print industry. Foilco were the very first foil company to set up a foil recovery scheme and be certified as zero foil to landfill compliant. Paradiso Institute is a non-profit cultural organisation built around a simple idea: creative lives require responsibility. Leadership and endurance and care for the body and mind shape the work more than talent ever will. They bring together people across borders and generations who are willing to commit to depth and long-term contribution. They value real encounters, shared experience, and giving back to the communities that formed them. Their attention stays on the work that holds over time. And please head to ui.org.ua to see the work of the Ukrainian Institute, who need your help to amplify the voices of the brave Ukrainian creative community during this brutal time of war. The music for the show, as ever, is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. For creativity resources for all budgets, from one-to-one and group coaching with me, to the reading list, podcast archive and creativity diary, head to thecreativecondition.com. Today I'm in reflective mode and I'm going to share a slightly ridiculous story involving an egg and a bus stop, and I like to think there's some deeper themes that are relevant to creativity. That's a little taste of what you get from this brain in between the guest episodes. Hello, welcome. This is The Creative Condition. How are you doing, guys? I hope you're well. Welcome to the show. If you're new, it's a joy to have you here. I hope you like what you find. You'll find a combination of guest interviews digging deep into the psyches of thought leaders in the arts and way beyond. And in between that, you'll get reflections, introspections, considerations and ponderings as I think more about creativity and the human condition and how we remain undeniably human in this age of automation. If that sounds up your street, give us a subscription on the platform you choose to listen to these podcasts. You can check them out at thecreativecondition.com, along with the usual suspects, the Spotifys, the Amazons, the Apple Podcasts. It's out there. I think YouTube. Yep, we're on YouTube. So whichever your preferred channel is, a subscription will be massively valuable. Telling a friend is incredible, and any ratings or reviews are also greatly appreciated. So cheers, guys. I hope I find you well today. It's scary times here in the UK. We've got half the countries in drought. This is referenced in the story I tell today, though it's not overtly about the climate or anything along those lines. It's just a mention of something that's relevant to why I'm telling you a little story that I wrote on a bus today in London this week. It's scary times. I think that we all need to be really careful with artificial intelligence. The warnings were there from the off about water usage. It's very resource-hungry technology. I think we should only use it when we absolutely need it. I don't think we should be fragrantly using it to mock up images, do things in pictures. I think all of this stuff is flagrant and quite silly, to be honest. When we've got half of a nation in drought and it's water intensive, we should really be thinking about what we're doing with this stuff. But it's documented, but it's not there. It's not news headlines. It's rarely referenced. When you hear them talking about droughts on the radio, for example, it's rarely raised. And yet to me, I think, well, why are we not pulling back on this stuff? I know the genie's at the bottle, as people like to say, but to me, I find it very sad that big tech has the kind of power that would see such a rollout of this stuff without any public consultation, without anyone asking about the psychological dangers, the environmental dangers and everything else. I could rant about that all day. I think I've used it about 20 times in my entire existence. These were simple queries on ChatGPT for things that I really needed help with, some of them mental health related. I'm not a person who can afford much in the way of therapy, so Sometimes in desperate times, these things are valuable. So I've used it very occasionally, but that's it. That's the extent of my use. I have 2 young children. I have to look them in the eye with the way I see this planet going and its resources. And I want to do that with pride. I want to do this knowing that I actually put up some fight and I didn't bow to just using this thing. Anyway, that's a tangent. I'm going to read you a story today. Check out any of the show sponsors I've mentioned at the start there, the Paradiso Institute, the founding sponsor Illustration X, Foilco, of course, and the Ukrainian Institute as they continue to fight a horrible war. Their creative community continues and it's brave and inspiring, so check those guys out, ui.org.ua. I hope you enjoyed a recent episode with Dason Ortiz talking confidence in your story. I love Dason's point of view. His story about his father was empowering and inspiring and very moving, in my opinion. So, again, check that one out. Check previous episodes with Kendra Valentine talking about pitching and using your story in kind of getting work in, presenting what you do and telling people who you are and what value you offer. Really important stuff for creators in our current age. Let's get into this story. I'm going to read you a silly story. It's only a working title. I called it the R.A. Eggman. You'll get it anyway. Here we go. I'm sweating outside the Royal Academy in West London under the big drapes, which hang gloriously in purple and green, declaring summer show, when a bloke walks past, double takes, and pisses himself laughing, spluttering that he hasn't seen that before. The woman he's with carries on talking and walking, oblivious he's come off the curb. He's staggering, cackling, getting beeped by angry wasp scooter drivers, sweating under their helmets, and not in the mood for dickheads inviting near-death experiences. I lived in London for 3 years, and in London you see many things. Horrible things, silly things, grand things, bizarre things, and all kinds of accepted, or at least tolerated, madness. But this has hauled the passerby into the moment, and now he's present, engaged with me. I'm in hysterics too because I know I'm a ridiculous human. I always have been, and somewhere along the way I learned to love it and live in that story. I'm not on stilts, I'm not flapping anything obscene about to shock people off their phones. I'm not hurt or hallucinating. I'm simply peeling a boiled egg at speed because the bus is coming, and I'm too well versed in the biblical repercussions of empty stomach after work drinking. Every good mentor I've had told me to keep my work simple, and this nutritional faux pas, it seems, in all of its confrontational minimalism, is enough to cut through the humdrum atmosphere of West London and snag attention. That's what we're in, isn't it? The attention economy. I wasn't trying to draw attention. Nobody told me about any egg algorithm. I grew up in a family who needed a lot of buses and a lot of packed lunches to get by. On the bus, this leaves me wondering whether I'd have provoked the same loss of composure had I been spooning out an avocado, activating a cup of soup, or peeling a banana. And what about opening a pocket box of raisins? Almost certainly not. If you're wondering why an egg, it's just what we did. Boiled them, kept them in a lunchbox in case we got delayed or found ourselves drifting hungrily between lunch and tea. I laugh along because I have an ability to project my perspective into third person to see how ludicrous I look in certain scenarios. I've always lived for the story, gone to great lengths for the story, doing away gleefully with dignity and inhibition to get the story. My own expense is a small price to pay for a good recounting at the pub. Eventually he catches up with the woman, and I can see him reenacting my egg peeling, shaking his head as I take a greedy bite and tap my card on the yellow circle to board the bus. Upstairs I sit with a smirk on my face and think about the many, many such moments in my life, at times a cartoon life. I look at the sea of city people from above and wonder who is holding back, who is letting it all out there, and why. Be yourself is a vacuous piece of advice we're all routinely confronted with. The trouble is, if you've never spent the time getting to know who you are, then it's not helpful. It takes a lot of dedicated work to accept yourself, to really understand your patterns, your roots, and to find meaning in them. What you're not is just as important as what you are when it comes to building a sustainable, adaptable, creative practice, and even then, uncertainty remains rampant. So just last night, a coaching client of mine expressed deep sadness and dismay, as did I. over the recent reports of AI companies buying rare books, feeding their text to large language models, and then shredding them. This opened a discussion between us about the need to really commit to the work and, that can only be yours, the work that can only be yours. These sort of reports, the droughts across half the UK that woke me this morning with a tsunami of anxiety, can savage our peace. So we must create harder than ever before. Create to cope, create to be as human as it possibly gets. Because that's what we are. Human. We feel and we ask why. Asking why got us to this moment in all of its grotesque, unimaginable form. And the next moments will be shaped by asking why again. Not asking a robot why and contributing to those droughts. That's shredding. But to each other, to the future, to hope that magic is real, that peeling an egg over a bin at a bus stop is a story worth retelling because, well, what hope is there if we can't share something silly that might conjure a giggle? Nice one, guys. Thank you for listening. A short one today, a little story I wanted to share with you. I hope that opens up some thought in you about who you are and what you're not and what that means. And have you spent time with yourself recently to consider who you are in this moment? Because course correction is critical as we move through a creative career. I've changed and gone off in different directions many times. I often think, should I have just been an illustrator and focused on being the best illustrator in the world? There's no such thing but the best I could be. No, not for me. I'm very curious. I like to roam. I like to see, what else I can do with my interests, with my curiosities, with my passions, and I always will. And it brings stress sometimes, when I'm constantly building a new thing, and it makes me feel guilty for not focusing on the old one. But I have to change, and I have to make this sustainable because I'm not trained in anything else. I can't apply for a job. I've been out the market for 18 years, and I'm told you have to go through 4 or 5 rounds of interviews these days. Bollocks to that. Maybe one day I'll have to, and I'll have to scramble, and I'll have to get my act together. And maybe I'll have to go and ask AI for help with that, and I'll have to tuck my tail between my legs and just get on with it, I don't know, it's a confusing time. I've shared with you guys a lot about rampant anxiety. I felt it very strongly today. The droughts are causing it, the screaming, unignorable climate crisis that's here. And yet I have to go and work every day. I have to go and draw. I have to go down the supermarket and buy things, and it's, you have to live a normal life, and we're in this system. And until it capsizes, there's no real way to get out of it. And that keeps me awake some nights. And it's why I look for fulfillment in my job, because if I don't talk to you guys doing this, if I don't write silly stories like that, if I don't have moments in my life that I can share with others to help them understand themselves better and scrunch that and channel it with all its energy into a creative practice, then my purpose is flattened. And that's dangerous because I've never been able to motivate myself unless I'm passionate about something. It's why I completely underwhelmed at school despite all the promise. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What silly stories have you got? What serious stories have you got? What are you doing that is inherently you, that is a kind of FU to anybody else, and not in an aggressive way, but in a fun way? It might be a silly way, it might be a droll, obscure way. I want to hear about it. ben@bentalon.com. If you want to do some coaching work, get in touch. I've got slots available. ben@bentalon.com or thecreativecondition.com/coach. Or for my story-based coaching, thecreativecondition.com/story. Nice one, guys. Have an awesome week. Take care of yourselves. Stay creative. The Creative Condition is brought to you by founding sponsor Illustration X, who you can find at illustrationx.com. The Paradiso Institute, fighting for bold creative leadership, paradisoinstitute.org. And Foilco, the leader in hot stamping foils. Family run, northwest of England, awesome organisation. Check them out. And of course, the Ukrainian Institute. Please do support this wonderful organisation, supporting the bold and embattled Ukrainian creative community during this horrible time of war. ui.org.ua. And as ever, the beautiful music for the show is by Dirty Freud. You can check him out on all the usual platforms, including Spotify. Now,